Welcome, guys, to the 2025 Sants Open from Barcelona. Now, before I show you my first round game recap, I want to show you the playing hall, the playing venue, just like I did in France. Now, just now you saw the outside of the playing hall where players, parents, and visitors can wait, and this is the main playing hall where players from group A, B, and C are playing. Now, there are other rooms, if I'm not mistaken, but this is the main playing hall. Huge tournament. There are over like at least like 600 or 700 players total. So yeah, very spacious playing hall, quite comfortable overall. To my liking, a bit cold. They are pushing the fans quite heavily, but it's not too bad, and it is hot outside, and it is hot in Barcelona. You can see the boards. We're entering slowly the broadcasting part. There are flags all over. I couldn't find the Hungarian flag. I know there are only 4 players, but come on, guys, the disrespect. No, anyway, jokes aside, so this is going to be the broadcasting area, where also players can watch on this big projector. Very cool concept. I like this a lot. So yeah, overall very cool playing hall, and that's it for me. And before I show you my first game, I want to also share what my thought process was and what I had to say right after the game ended. So see you guys soon. I'm a complete and utter idiot. Unbelievable. Anyway, I drew the first game against a 2000 rated player. I'm so mad. I was completely winning. Like, I was like -3, and then I sacrificed the rook for no reason whatsoever. I was low on time. I couldn't even calculate the line. I was like, but anyway, let's do it. Stupid. And then when I was completely lost, I offered to draw, and the opponent accepted it. I'm like, why do you respect me so much? Why do you respect the rating? Don't do it. Don't do it. But yeah, I'm actually at the end. I was glad that he accepted it. I'm so mad. I just should have played the move that I intended to play, right? But then I was just so fascinated by the sacrifice. I gotta do it. I gotta do it. That was a totally unnecessary risk. Bad start, and it is what it is. Yeah. Let me show you. Let me show you what happened. See on the analysis board. What a bad start to this tournament. Well, it is what it is. Let me show you guys how it went. So my opponent is a 15-year-old 2000 rated boy, and he started out with the move d4. I responded with d5, c4, e6, knight c3, a6. So this is a line that you saw me play in France. Very solid line, of course. C takes d5, e takes d5, bishop f4. So I wouldn't call this the main line, but it's definitely one of the main options for white. Knight f6, e3. And now black has pretty much 2 or 3 options. So the big main line starts with bishop d6. Bishop d6, very logical move. Trading that bishop off makes a lot of sense. The other move is c5. And this is the move that I mainly prepped, but instead I picked a very solid option, bishop e7. So my thought process behind this was that I didn't really want to commit to anything. So of course bishop d6 is a great move. C5 is also a great move, but keep in mind, my opponent was like 300 rated lower than me, so I just didn't really want to commit to anything direct. I'm not saying this is a good approach. I just wanted to be, solid in the first game, and only commit when I felt really confident doing it. So that's why I ended up playing bishop e7 instead of the 2 well-known main lines. Bishop d3, castle, queen c2. So in this opening phase, c5 move is generally speaking a good plan and a good move to make. So here, even here, I could have made the move c5, and after d takes c5, there's this interesting and somewhat well-known plan with knight bd7. So now I want to take back on c5 with the knight, hitting the bishop on d3. Of course, I am committing to this isolated pawn structure, but with the active pieces and overall better development, black has plenty of counterplay. There was even a game by Irina Krush from 2010. She played this way. I think it's completely justified. But again, I just didn't feel like committing to a move like this, even though, of course, it's objectively completely fine. So I ended up playing knight bd7 instead, knight g2, and then rook e8. So again, c5 move, again, even here would have been completely fine. So rook e8. But I played rook e8, and basically all these moves, so bishop e7, knight bd7, rook e8, they are all like the standard plans in the exchange version of the Queen's Gambit declined. So the differences here are that my pawn is on a6 instead of c6, right? So that my pawn remained on c7, which is, by the way, good for me because now I don't have to lose a tempo by playing, when I play c5, so I can play immediately c5, so that's very good. So that's one difference, and the other difference is that white bishop is on f4 instead of g5, which is I think it's actually okay for me as well. Like this is okay for me. So these are like the rook e8 and after castle, knight f8. So these are the standard plans in the let's call it the normal Queen's Gambit declined in the exchange version of it. So I was just basically playing the standard plans here, and then he plays the move f3. So f3 is interesting. So overall, this is the typical plan, especially in this setup. So again, if we compare it to the so-called standard structure or the standard line when the bishop is on g5 and the pawn is on c6, now in that version it's significantly better, right? Because black has to lose a tempo. So let me explain. So f3 is more or less like a wing attack move, right? So from white's perspective, white is playing on the king side, right? But whenever you do anything on the wing, whether it's on the king side or the queen side, right, you have to make sure that the center is solid and you have very strong grip on it. So a very typical counter move to these f3 moves or c5, and here c5 would have been really powerful. Now I was aware of c5, and I can't really tell you why I didn't make this move, but I was aware. So even in those, it's funny because even in the standard lines, right, when the bishop is on g5, pawn is on c6 again, even in those situations, black is willing to play c5, willing to lose a tempo just to break through in the center. So that's a very typical counter to any wing attack. So if something that you can take away from this always, that when you're attacking on the king side or the queen side, doesn't matter. So any wing attack is usually punished in the center. If it's punished anywhere, it's usually punished in the center. So something to remember. Now here, I made a questionable move. Now the biggest questionable thing that I did was the fact that in this position I spent a staggering, you're not even gonna believe it, I spent 40 like 4 and 0 40 minutes on my next move. Now you might ask why, and I do not have an answer. Unfortunately, I do not have. The only answer I have is that I am a complete moron. That's pretty much it. Like, I genuinely don't know. Like, c5 pretty much takes anywhere between 1 to maybe 3 minutes, and that's it. Like, you play c5 and then you move on with your life, right? Like, it's very, very simple. And then, I started doing this calculation, that calculation, all of this, and I was like, I don't know. And so I don't even understand. I truly don't even understand what went through my mind. And I remember, like, around the 20-minute mark, I was like, dude, what are you doing? Just make a move. Come on. And then another 10 minutes went by. I was like, the 30-minute mark. I was like, I was furious. I was literally like sitting at the board, and I was like, bro, I'm losing my mind. I'm literally losing my mind. Like, why are you not making a move? Just be confident. And then another 10 minutes went by, and then I convinced myself, okay, I just play the move. And then of course I ended up playing the not even the good move. I played knight h5. So and of course now my very first idea was c5, like, which is the standard move, and I'm well aware of it. And of course I was like, okay, f3 is probably not good because of c5, right? But then for whatever reason, I convinced myself to play knight h5 because, in my mind, I try to understand the differences between having the bishop on f4 and having the bishop on g5. And I figured, like, the disadvantage of having the bishop on f4, like the fact that white has the bishop on f4 instead of g5, is that now I can attack it. And if I can grab the bishop, right, for the knight, that's a very, very good trade for me. So I ended up playing knight h5, which is not even that great. And to be honest, I don't even remember clearly what I calculated. And I've heard this great saying that you usually find your move, like, somewhat quickly, right? Especially if you have a relatively good understanding of the position and of the game, you usually find your move very, very quickly. Now, the rest of the move, of course, depending on how complicated the position is basically the rest of the time that you use is for you just to convince yourself that the move is not good. And basically that's what happened here. So I knew, like, c5, immediately c5 is the best move, just play it, boom, move on with your life, great, right? But no, I spent another basically like 30 plus minutes to convince myself that no, I can do something better. And of course I ended up playing something worse, like significantly worse. So let me tell you why. So okay, so the standard moves, such as like bishop g3 or any non-dangerous moves, are completely fine for me. Of course, the best move is bishop e5, and this is the move that I expected. Now, and this is where I'm struggling to understand my thought process, because I don't know what I calculated. Because if I want to play c6 here, right, then it's like, okay, so then why did you spend 40 minutes on knight h5 if you're just going to play c6, of course? And even knight h5 now, it doesn't even make a whole lot of sense. White plays g4, knight f6, white activates the rook, and white even has a slight edge. So of course, maybe something like, you go f6, right, just to really make knight h5 work, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. I played knight h5 to grab the bishop, right? I was like, okay, finally I can at least grab the bishop here. But f6 is incorrect. F6 is just simply incorrect. And I did calculate this. I don't know what went through my mind again here, but like, f6 is just simply incorrect. Why? Because white can just sacrifice here on d5. Very, very nice move, right? So I can't play queen d5 because bishop c4, and that's all she wrote. And so if I take on e5, now white just takes on c7. And then look at my pieces. Sure, in terms of material, but even in terms of material, it's not even that great, right? Because now my rooks are hanging. The rook on a8 is hanging for free. So let's say you play something like bishop d8, and then I take on e5. And so if we look at material, 2, 4, 6, 7 pawns, I have 4 pawns, right? So white immediately has 3 pawns for the for the piece. My king is weak. So if you're like, oh, but I can win the knight. No, you can't. Because rook c8 is met by queen b3 check, king h8, takes, g4, you trap my knight and I can resign. Right? Which is even more awkward. I don't even understand. And I saw most of these things. So why did I spend 40 minutes? That's still a mystery. And here's the kicker, right? The cherry on top, as they say, right? So I spent 40 minutes on this move, on a arguably a bad move, right? And again, I saw the right move in like 2 minutes or whatever. And then my opponent spent another like 30 minutes also playing the move that I didn't even like look at. I was like, because it makes no sense. And of course it didn't make sense. My opponent ended up playing rook e1. And I was like, why? Just why? Like, why to a lot of things, right? Like, why did I spend this much time? If I play some bad like knight h5, then just play it immediately or whatever. And then, like, why am I overcomplicating everything, right? No disrespect to this guy, because he whatever. But rook e1 is just simply a bad move, right? And then, but I feel like I'm rambling here, but you have to understand my frustration here a little bit. It's terrible. So anyway, so rook e1 is just bad. Because rook e1 doesn't do anything. So the thing is, with rook e1, you're basically letting me do whatever I want. Right, that's the point. So if I take on f4 here, I didn't take on f4, but if I take on f4, which is of course a great move, takes. If I go c6, like this position is already better for me because of the bishop pair, and the bishop pair is relevant here because the structure is rather dynamic. So I can open up the position at any time, and the bishops are working really well, and especially the dark squared bishop is going to be really powerful, and there's also no counter to that bishop. So I could have taken. At first, I wanted to be a bit smart, and I think that this was justified. So this rook e1 move was meant by bishop h4. So bishop h4 was basically just a, again, I tried to be precise here, and again, I think this was okay. So basically the point is that I'm forcing g3 out of you, and after bishop f6, now you have to be careful because I am planning to go some like g5, right? And then I trap your bishop. So basically I'm forcing you to play g4. And then takes, and now it's after c6, it's more or less the same position as, let's say, this one. Yes, but I forced this g4 out of g4 move out of you, which in my opinion is quite good for me. Like in general, like, okay, you made some weaknesses. Okay, so king h1, and I played the move queen d6. I think it's a reasonable, activating the queen. And there was an interesting plan that I kind of missed. I was not aware of it, and I think it's a really clever plan, which is b5. Now b5 it looks like a weird move, I know, because it feels like an unnecessary commitment, and to be honest, that's why I played the move queen d6, because I felt like, okay, if I just simply bring the pieces out, I have a better position, and I think that still stands, and that's true. But b5 is a good move because I want to activate the rook. With this rook a7, rook e7, with this rook lift, attacking the pawn on e3. I think that's a very, very clever plan. Yes, as I said, it is a commitment because now there is a backward c6 isolated pawn, but you can't really attack it too well, whereas, I can attack the pawn on e3. But anyway, I think queen d6 was good enough. Queen d2, bishop d7, rook g1, g6. So here I started playing a little bit faster as well. The moves seemed relatively easy. I'm just slowly but surely improving the position. g5, bishop g7, h4, and here I wanted to activate the other rook as well. So the rook in the corner is not doing much. And I ended up playing rook e7. I think this was good because, I just want to double. Now, an even better move would have been knight e6. So knight e6 achieves pretty much the same thing, but maybe a little bit faster. I did see the move. I was considering knight e6. But again, even in this position, even though I knew I was better at this point, I kept my kind of like my approach here to avoid trading. Now rook e7, knight c2, rook e8, knight g2, and I was like, okay, I knew at this point, like, okay, this is going my way. So this is looking very, very good. And bishop h3. So here, after bishop h3, I basically calculated the winning line. Knight f4, bishop takes g4, bishop takes g2, knight takes g2, queen g3, rook f1. So this is the position I saw when I played the move bishop h3. I saw this position and I knew I have a good position here, or like I felt like I was very close to winning. King is super weak. Every piece is doing really well in my position. Opponent has a lot of weaknesses. This is a good position. So here there are tons of good moves. 8-6 I believe is one of them. Of course, very reasonable move to activate the bishop that way. Makes sense. I ended up playing the move knight e7. I think that was also correct. An even better move would have been knight e6. So both knight e6 and knight e7, and they have the same purpose of playing c5 and opening the position that way. But knight e6, I think it has a little bit more venom, just because it's a lot harder for white to make a move. And also I'm setting up a trap. So a very natural move would be something like queen f2, but queen f2 is incorrect because I can just take stakes and knight takes d4 using the pin, and the endgame is of course completely winning for me. So this one would have been nice, but I played knight e7, which was almost just as good. Now he went with king g1, and here I lost my mind pretty much. Yeah, I lost my mind completely. So I played knight e7 to play c5, and if I play c5, I think the game ends in like 5 or 10 moves. Like I do believe that the opponent folds here very, very quickly. So pawn is hanging, let's see you take, and I have two good options. I can play either knight e5 or knight c5. Both are very, very good. So let's say knight takes c5, bishop b1, and then I break through with d4. You can take on d4 because I take on e1, and then all the pins, bishop d4, king is weak, game over, right? And then let's say you play e4, and then I push d3, very typical move. I'm creating the square on d4, and then it's pretty much, again, gonna be game over very, very soon. But also, even knight e5 would have been a very good move. And after bishop e2, again, same idea with d4. Let's say you push through, and again, I go with d3, opening up the d file, the d4 square, again, gonna be game over very, very soon. So that was my plan. I played knight e7 to play c5. But when my opponent played king g1, I was like, wait a second, do I win immediately? And I was like, I can't take this. Like, this is like too much. Like, this is too tempting. And also in the back of my mind, I was like, this is what I preach, right? This is what I preach. So just be brave, don't be afraid, and just do it, right? Now here, this is not a good approach. Like, this is simply just not right, because you already have a very good position. There's no need to take extra risks. Like here in this situation, is just this mentality in general. It's great, of course, that is the way. But here is just completely unnecessary to sacrifice something, because you're winning anyway. If you play just c5, it's already like -3. Like, you don't need to take extra risks here. But I was like, oh, whatever. And also, I couldn't even calculate it. So I was low on time, of course, thanks to my 40 minutes earlier, and I couldn't even calculate the line fully. So like, there are everything goes against this sacrifice, but I ended up doing it anyway, which is, of course, gives up the advantage immediately. So rook takes c3, basically a blunder. So my point was that, okay, after rook takes e3, I have bishop takes d4, and this looks great. Now this is just not good. Rook fe1, and of course I made it even worse. So I took on e3. I was low on time here, so I was in a time scramble. And that's why I said, like, if you can't even calculate it, then, and you're low on time, why are you taking such risks? Absolutely ridiculously bad judgment on my end, unfortunately. So here I made an even worse move. Rook takes e3. Had I played knight e5, now this one would have been very interesting, because my opponent was also somewhat in a time scramble. He had a little bit more time, but he was also in a somewhat of a time scramble, and now there's only one move here. There's only one move here that actually equalizes. Not necessarily a very challenging move, but it's still a move that you have to find, because if you go something like bishop b2, which makes somewhat of a sense, right, to like kick the bishop away from d4, protecting the pawn on f3, but it's actually incorrect. And if you made it this far in the video, first of all, I thank you for it, and second, comment down below, what do you think is the winning move here for black? Not that difficult, but still maybe a challenge. I don't know. But the best move here is king f1. King f1 is a very good move, moving out of the pin. Black goes rook e6, let's say bishop takes g6, bishop takes, king takes, rook takes c3, and this is more or less equal. So knight e5 would have been the best move. I think I can still easily win this game. Objectively speaking, it's equal, and I gave up my advantage completely with the sacrifice, but this is still a very much playable position and a winnable one. But instead I took on e3 and rook e3, and then I played knight e5. So this is a worse version, because now I don't have the same trick. So here the only move that would have kept the equality, more or less the equality, I think at this point I'm fighting for equality, is queen takes f3. Queen takes f3, bishop e2, bishop takes c3, queen takes e3, takes, and f6, and I do believe I can hold this endgame. Now again, objectively speaking, it's white's game, but it's probably holdable. Like, objectively speaking, black can hold this endgame. But instead, I played the move knight e5. I even saw the right move with bishop e2, but I was like, whatever. I mean, I'll make it work. And then I realized, okay, again, I was down to my last minute. I was living off of 30 seconds, and so I was like, okay, I can't make this work. And I played bishop a7, and I realized I'm completely lost. Like, I'm completely lost after f4. If white goes f4, I think I resign. Because, okay, let's say you go knight d7, king h1, takes, and I have to trade queens, which is horrible, takes, and basically this is the same endgame as before, right? So let me show you. So let's say this position, it's more or less the same endgame, but here, in this position, white doesn't have an f-pawn. In my game, white could have kept the f-pawn, right? So that's a huge difference. And I saw this position, I'm like, okay, I'm completely lost here, right? Like, it makes a huge difference. So I was lost here. So, okay, what does a seasoned veteran do here in this position? Last resort, offer a draw, right? Offer a draw. And of course, like, my opponent made the most typical mistake, that basically what I teach to every single student of mine is to just fight, right? It doesn't matter what happens, just fight. Especially now that you're like, it's like +3, of course you fight. But my opponent respected me too much, which is, I don't know. Did he not see how I played? Whatever. I don't know. And he respected my rating. Bad mistake, and of course he accepted the draw, which is, I was genuinely surprised, but yeah, so I was lucky at the end. Well, guys, that's it. I have a bad start to this tournament. Yeah. Well, it's okay. It's time to bounce back. I need to change my mindset. Need to be a little bit, faster, more confident, and it'll be good. It'll be good. Rough start, but total 10 rounds. I actually said in my last video that it's 9 rounds, which is a lot, but no, it's actually going to be 10 rounds. Crazy. It's okay. So I have time to come back. It's okay. Let's keep it up. All right, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something as usual, and I will see you in game 2. Take care, guys.